I dressed like a poor, naive mother for one dinner, just to see how my daughter-in-law's family would treat me. By dessert, they were offering me money to disappear. But when the bill arrived, the truth did too. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. I'd love to know. Where in the world are you watching this from? Tell us in the comments below, and let's see how far this story can reach. I never taught my son to measure people by what they wore. I taught him to read faces, to watch for the small flinch in a smile. So when Marcus called on a Tuesday and asked if I could dress simple for dinner with Sienna's parents, I watched the space between his words. Simple, I repeated. He cleared his throat. They're particular. I just don't want any misunderstandings. You know how first impressions are. There it was. A request wearing a costume. Don't embarrass me. I'll be there, I said. I ended the call and looked around my apartment. Pale walls, a small television, old oak table with a scar from a Thanksgiving casserole that had jumped the trivet in 2004, 2 mugs hanging by their chipped handles. Quiet wealth breathes differently. It lives in decisions no one can see. I could afford any address. I stayed here because peace listens better in small spaces. On the bookshelf, a photo. My mother, Alara, laughing with a spoon raised like a scepter. She used to say, "True power doesn't shout. It seasons and serves." I pulled down the dusty garment bag, hesitated, and pushed it back. Not tonight. Tonight, I'd take something from the donation box by the door. The gray dress with the exhausted seams, the canvas tote with a coffee halo on its corner, shoes whose leather knew rain. It wasn't a lie, it was a test, not of Marcus, of the people training him to apologize for love. I wrote a note on a Post-it and stuck it to the frame of my mother's picture. Watch. Don't warn. Then I took a cab. The driver, a man with patient eyes and a prayer bead looped around the gear lever, adjusted the mirror and smiled. "Big night?" he asked. "Just dinner," I said. He nodded as if that answer were 2 stories taller than I made it. Outside, the city's best streets unrolled like ribbon, the part of town where the napkins are heavier than rent, where the hostesses memorize last names, where water costs $19 because the label says it remembers a glacier's childhood. The restaurant glowed on the corner, Maison Ilara. The serifed letters were warm brass against black stone. The name still stung when I saw it unexpectedly. Sienna had chosen it. They say it's the city's gem. But she didn't know why my throat tightened when I read the sign. You don't tell your son every thread in the story. Some you keep until a seam matters. A doorman opened the glass. A fragrance the color of money drifted out. Truffle, oak, well-trained butter. Marcus stood near the windows in a navy suit he wore like a borrowed decision. Sienna was beside him. She had the precise stillness of a porcelain figure that knows the shelf she's on. At the table, her parents. Helena's dress was the kind of green that jewelry stores whisper about. Victor wore a gray so exact it probably had an NDA. Marcus saw me first. His eyes flicked from my tote to my shoes. A quick swallow, a quick recovery. He came toward me with a smile he'd practiced. "Mom, you made it." "Of course," I said. "Where else would I be?" He kissed my cheek and guilt brushed my skin with it. I forgave him before we sat down. Sienna tilted her face to be kissed on the air. "Mara," she said, "you look comfortable." "Thank you," I said. "Comfort is underrated." Helena offered her hand like a receipt. "You must be Marcus's mother," she said. The handshake was light as tissue. The eyes were not. Victor stood, then didn't move his chair. "Pleasure," he said, voice polished to chrome. The chair at the end of the table waited for me, the exiled throne. I sat, no one touched the back of my chair, and I didn't need them to. A waiter slid a menu to me. French, italicized, prices adrift in discrete numerals. A second waiter poured water from a bottle with a mountain on it. He set the empty bottle down so we could admire the topography of its bill. $19. The mountain had good lawyers. Helena watched me read the menu like it contained a moral test. "Do you need help?" she asked. There was concern in the sentence. There was something else wearing concern's coat. I don't know these words, I said. I let my voice be smaller than it is. What is entrecote? Steak, she said. Graciousness lacquered onto the single syllable. They have an excellent cut here. 82, but she softened her tone. For a first visit, the chef's chicken is very nice. 36. Chicken, I said. Nice. Victor lifted his glass, watched the wine race its rim. The Bordeaux is beautiful tonight, Marcus. He turned the bottle so the label could perform. 240, but worth it. He smiled without teeth. Some things are. Sienna stirred the air with her napkin. She didn't meet my eyes. I watched Helena watch me. She narrated their hotel, their driver, the boutique where the saleswoman pulled a few pieces in our color story. She narrated the kind of life built to be narrated. Marcus tried a new subject, then folded it when Helena patted his forearm. You know, she said to me, I admire women who've done it alone. It must be challenging. It has its weather, I said. And at your stage of life, Victor added, one worries, stability, support. We're very proactive about Sienna's stability. A small silence put on a coat and sat down at our table. Helena smiled the way brokers do when they say, just between us. We've been discussing how to make things easy for everyone, she said. Marcus is starting his firm. We're investing significantly. We want him focused, not distracted. Distracted? I asked. My fork rested on porcelain the color of hush. She spread her fingers, rings like promises. The everyday anxieties. Rent increases, groceries, aging parents. We don't want Marcus to feel pulled. I nodded. The waiter returned with steak for them. Chicken for me. The steak arrived on a plate that could have been a sundial. My chicken sat politely, sauce like a compliment it didn't believe. Helena cut a perfect bite. We were thinking, she said. We could help you, Mara. A little monthly cushion. Something modest. 500 to 700, just so you're comfortable, and in return, perhaps a bit more independence for the newlyweds. Space. Space. Marcus drew breath. Mom, it's kind, I said, and meant none of the letters. I chewed the chicken. It tasted like a good apology. I sipped water. The glacier had opinions. Helena relaxed, mistaking quiet for agreement. See, she said to Sienna, adults solve problems. Victor leaned toward Marcus. We'll have the down payment support wired by Monday. It's better if we handle these things. Efficiency. Marcus's jaw moved. He swallowed words he might need later. I watched the room. The host touched his earpiece and scanned the floor. The bar captain wiped a ring of condensation as if erasing a mistake. A brass plaque on the far wall winked under lamplight. I didn't turn my head to read it. I didn't need to. It had my mother's name on it. Not showy, not centered. Just there if you knew where to look. Tell me, I said to Helena, what does help buy? She blinked. I'm sorry? 500 to 700, I said. What does it purchase? Silence? Fewer phone calls? Fewer visits? Fewer reminders that love doesn't amortize like a mortgage? Her knife paused mid-stroke. That's not fair. Fair is expensive, I said softly. You can put it on the Bordeaux. Victor set his glass down with the care people reserve for heirlooms. We're offering dignity. Dignity, I said, doesn't come with a receipt. The table cooled by a degree. Sienna finally looked at me, fast, then away. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, adjusted the cuff that didn't need adjusting. I laid my fork across the plate. You see me, I said, and misprice me. It happens. Mara, Helena said, almost pitying, no one is mispricing you. We're trying to lift a burden. Marcus shouldn't worry at night about whether you can manage on... What is it again you do? Admin? I let the question dangle like a rain chain. I watched it catch the tiny storms. The work is small, I said, and I let the words be plain. The responsibilities are not. She smiled, relieved. Exactly. We ate, or pretended to. Conversation turned to their Tuscan villa's kitchen tile, hand-painted, to the jet lag cure a private clinic infuses. The numbers were a chorus. $82, $240, $19, $700. I stacked them in my head like chips no one would cash. By the time dessert menus appeared, tiny edible art with prices that flirted with 32, Helena breathed in as if about to make a toast. Family, she began, is a circle of... I stood my spoon in its saucer. You're right, I said, and because you're right, I'll help with the arithmetic. Marcus whispered, Mom. Marcus, I said without looking at him, it's all right. I turned to Helena. My voice did not climb. It simply stopped pretending to be small. You think I'm here to cost your daughter, I said. You think you're buying my absence wholesale. Victor's mouth compressed by a millimeter. This is becoming clear, I said. Across the room, the manager glanced over. Recognition is a private thing between professionals, a nod quick as a signature. He didn't come to the table. He didn't need to. That was for later. Helena set her napkin down, a white flag on linen. I'm not sure what you want from us. Nothing, I said. That's the trouble with dignity. It doesn't invoice. Sienna's voice arrived at the table for the first time. Maybe we should, I agreed. Here's what we should do. Finish dinner, pay for what we ordered, tip well, and not discuss stipends ever again. Marcus doesn't sleep better because you throttle his love. Helena's composure put on a new coat. You're very proud, Mara. Incorrect measure, I said. Very careful. The waiter returned with the check in a leather folio the color of hedge funds. Victor reached for his wallet. He slid a card in with a practiced motion and a look that said, Of course. The waiter nodded, left. A beat later, returned. I'm so sorry, sir, he said. This one seems to be declined. Likely a travel flag. Shall we try another? Victor blinked once. Try this. He offered another. The waiter left and came back with the same apology, polished the same way. Helena frowned at the leather as if it had failed its interview. I looked at Marcus. He went pale. I shook my head just enough for a son to recognize the signal. Stay seated. Let air in. May I said to the table mildly. Helena lifted her eyes. You don't have to. Correct, I said. I don't. I raised a hand. The manager materialized as if the room had arranged itself. Up close, his lapel pin, a tiny key, caught the light. Ms. Hale, he said, the way people say a name they're glad to see. Good evening. Helena stared at him, then at me. The manager inclined slightly. Would you prefer the ledger to reflect the owner's comp tonight, or shall we process your founder's key as usual? He held out a small black tray. In the tray was a matte steel key fob etched with a number that lives only in a safe. I took it between my fingers, felt its honest weight, and set it on the tablecloth where numbers had been holding court all night. Helena's face lost a color no palette could replace. Either is fine, I said, but please add a $1,000 tip to the staff tuition fund. I turned the key toward the manager. For my mother. He nodded, understanding more than sentences carry. As you wish, Ms. Hale, and thank you again for continuing the scholarship program. The table went silent enough to hear the restaurant's heartbeat. Somewhere in the kitchen, a pan hissed. Somewhere at the bar, Ice learned the names of spirits. I didn't look at Helena or Victor. I looked at Sienna, whose eyes were wet in a way not yet related to tears. True power doesn't shout, I said, mostly to the spoon in its saucer. My mother taught me that. She also taught me to season and serve. The manager left. The ledger did its quiet arithmetic, and the night finally turned toward ease, honest weather. I spent the rest of that Tuesday evening staring at the city skyline through my kitchen window, lights glittering like 1,000 people pretending to be stars. I'd built my life in this city brick by invisible brick, yet I had never felt as small as I did after that phone call. Dress simple, Marcus had said, as if dignity could wrinkle or fade like fabric. But I understood. He was nervous, trying to impress people who lived in a world of surface and shine. People who valued names on business cards more than names spoken with love. I'd met their kind before, in boardrooms, in negotiations, in mirrors I used to check for weakness. Still, the ache wouldn't leave. How did my son, the boy I'd raised on hard truths and soft shoulders, grow into a man who thought simplicity was something to hide? I poured myself a cup of black coffee, let the bitterness wake the anger simmering beneath the calm. I wasn't furious at Marcus. I was furious at the world that taught him to apologize for me. And if Sienna's parents were coming ready to judge, then I'd give them exactly what they came for. They wanted a poor woman. I'd show them one. Wednesday. I opened the closet and stared at my choices like I was choosing a disguise for a heist. My real clothes hung on one side. Tailored suits, silk blouses, structured heels. The uniform of someone who had fought her way up through a fortress of glass ceilings. On the other side, the life I used to live. Old cotton dresses, shoes with worn soles, the cardigan that had survived more winters than I cared to count. That's the one. I chose the gray dress again, the one that made me look like background noise. Then I took my old canvas tote, patched and faded, from the bottom drawer. It used to carry Marcus's lunch when he was in high school, a piece of string still, dangled from where his name had been stitched once, now barely visible. I ran my finger across it and smiled faintly. Perfect, I murmured. Poor, naive, invisible. Thursday, at the office, I signed a contract worth $15 million before lunch. The young associate next to me looked at the plain leather bag I carried and smirked slightly. "You know, Miss Hale," he said, "you could buy a new one. The handles on that thing are older than me." I smiled. That's why it hasn't failed me yet. He laughed awkwardly. He didn't understand that for me, invisibility had always been my greatest armor. People who underestimated me always told me more than they should. That night, I called my assistant and told her to hold all calls for the weekend. "Family time," I said. She paused. "Everything okay, ma'am?" I hesitated, then replied, "We'll find out." Saturday came faster than I expected. I woke before dawn, made strong coffee, and stood before the mirror. My reflection looked like someone the world had forgotten. Simple dress, pale skin tired from years of making do. I tied my hair into a loose ponytail and left my makeup untouched. Then I slipped my mother's ring, a tiny silver band shaped like an olive branch, onto my finger. Not expensive, not noticeable, just right. Before leaving, I took a small metal key from my jewelry box, the founder's key, dull from years of silence, and tucked it deep into my tote. I didn't know if I'd need it, but something told me I might. When I locked the apartment door, it felt like sealing away a secret. The cab arrived on time. The driver greeted me with a kind smile, and I returned it. "Maison Ilara," I said quietly. "Beautiful place," he replied, checking the address. "Special occasion?" I looked out the window. "Let's just call it a test." The ride was long, the city unfolding like a story I'd already read too many times. People chasing approval they didn't need, walking fast to dinners they wouldn't remember. When we passed the river, I thought about my mother again. She used to say, "Mara, money shows you who people are. Not because it changes them, but because it lets them stop pretending." By the time the cab turned onto the boulevard of glittering windows and luxury storefronts, my pulse was steady. The dress might have been cheap, but the confidence beneath it was worth a fortune. Maison Ilara stood on the corner, glowing gold under the evening lights. People in designer suits flowed in and out like a parade of trophies. The doorman opened the glass door with a polite nod, but his eyes flicked quickly over my shoes. Measuring, categorizing. Good. Let him. Inside, the air smelled of rosemary and arrogance. Marcus waved me over from a table near the window. His smile was stretched thin, his eyes shifting between me and the people beside him. Sienna rose from her seat. She was elegant, deliberate, every hair in place. "Mara," she said warmly, but the warmth never made it past her lips. "You look lovely." I smiled. "Thank you, dear. You too." Her mother, Helena, barely looked up from her glass of red wine. The stem trembled in her manicured fingers, catching the chandelier light. "So this is Marcus's mother," she said. Not a question, but a classification. Her husband, Victor, offered a curt nod. A pleasure. It didn't sound like one. Marcus gestured for me to sit. I took the chair farthest from Helena. The same pattern my competitor's script used. Symbolic distance. Menus appeared. The waiter poured water, carefully tilting the bottle to display its imported label. $19. My mind noted automatically. Helena's eyes darted toward my bag. Canvas, faded, humbly resting beside a purse that probably cost 3 months of someone's salary. She smiled the way people do before saying something poisonous. "Do you need help with the menu, dear?" I tilted my head. "Oh, yes, thank you. I've never been to a place this fancy." Victor chuckled softly. "It's just a restaurant, but yes, it's high-end. We like to support quality." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, they make great chicken here. You'll like it." "Chicken sounds perfect," I said gently. Helena turned to the waiter. "The roasted chicken, please. Something simple, for her." Then to the waiter again, "And make sure the sauce isn't too spicy. She's not used to that." Her tone was sweet, but I'd heard that melody before. Pity dressed as kindness. Dinner unfolded like theater. They spoke of their hotels, their travels, their properties, Monaco, Milan, and something about the Aspen place. Each sentence carried a price tag. Each laugh rang hollow. Then Helena leaned forward, her voice silky. "Marcus tells us you live alone, Mara. That must be challenging at your age." I smiled faintly. Sometimes peace and loneliness are the same thing, just spelled differently. Sienna glanced down at her plate. Helena continued, "Still, we were thinking, perhaps it's time to make things easier for you. Marcus shouldn't have to worry." I looked up slowly. "Easier?" "Yes," Victor joined in. "We're practical people. We like to help where help is needed. We could send you a small monthly amount, maybe $500 to $700, to cover expenses, just until you're more comfortable." The words landed like ice. Marcus's fork froze mid-air. Helena smiled, oblivious. That way, Marcus can focus on his marriage, not on extra responsibilities. I stared at my plate. My reflection warped in the silver rim, calm but cracking beneath the surface. And in that quiet, my mother's voice came back to me. "When people show you the price they've put on you, pay attention. It's never about the number." I lifted my head, smiled softly, and said, "That's very generous of you." Helena exhaled with relief, assuming victory. "See, Marcus, everyone wins when we act like adults." But Marcus didn't smile. He knew something was coming. When dessert arrived, tiny golden flakes shining on a cake the size of a teacup. Helena dabbed her lips with her napkin and said, "I'm so glad we could have this dinner as a family. It's important that we understand one another." "Yes," I said quietly. "Understanding is everything." She nodded approvingly. "Exactly." I leaned forward, still gentle. "I just have one small question, Helena." "Of course, dear." "What do you buy for $700 a month?" Her fork froze. "Excuse me?" "Because that's what you offered me, right? 700? I'm just wondering what you think it's worth. My silence, my absence, or my son's peace of mind?" Her smile thinned. "I think you're misunderstanding." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I interrupted softly. "I just wanted to hear it from you." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was expensive. Marcus looked at me, wide-eyed. He'd never heard my voice sharpen like that. calm, measured, surgical. I set my fork down and straightened my posture. The act was over, and the woman they thought was poor had just taken off her disguise, though they didn't know it yet. The maitre d' greeted me with that polite pause people reserve for the unexpected. A momentary scan, dress, tote, shoes, a mental receipt already tallied. Reservation for park. Party of 5, I said. His smile stayed professional, but it softened in the way pity sometimes does. Of course. Right this way, ma'am. We walked through a forest of crystal and murmurs. Every table glowed under its own little moon of light. I could feel Helena's voice before I heard it, the kind of bright laughter that wants witnesses. "There you are," she said when I approached. "We were just wondering if you got lost." "No," I replied, "just counting chandeliers." Marcus stood immediately, trying too hard. "Mom, you remember Sienna's parents." Victor offered a handshake that lasted exactly 1 second too long. Assertive, practiced. Helena's fingers brushed my arm like someone testing fabric. "Sit, dear. You must be tired." The table was a geography of status. Crystal water on one side, silver carafe on the other, menus placed like borders. My seat waited at the far end, closest to the aisle, easiest to overlook. I took it without protest. Sometimes you learn more from where people place you than from what they say. A waiter appeared, posture perfect. "Sparkling or still?" Helena answered for me. "Still, she's probably not used to bubbles." Marcus blinked. "Mom likes sparkling." "It's fine," I cut in gently. "Still is peaceful." Helena smiled, pleased with her control of something as small as water. Exactly. Menus opened like hymnals. The prices hummed under each line. Tiny, powerful notes. Victor glanced at mine. "They printed in French here. Bit tricky. Would you like me to translate?" I smiled. "No need. I know the language that matters." His eyebrow lifted, not in curiosity, but correction. He pointed with his knife. "That entrecote is exquisite. $82, but it melts like truth." Helena added, "Though if you prefer something home style, they do a charming chicken. $36. I nodded slowly. "Then I'll take the charming one." Marcus shot me a look of apology. I returned one that said, "Let it happen." Sienna stayed silent, tracing the rim of her glass. Her parents filled every silence before sincerity could fit. When the waiter left, Helena leaned closer, lowering her voice as if generosity required secrecy. "I must say, it's refreshing that you don't chase appearances, Mara. So many women your age forget limitations." "Do they?" I asked. "Oh, absolutely. Age brings wisdom and humility." "Sometimes it brings mirrors," I said softly. She blinked, unsure if that was agreement or insult. Victor swirled his wine, letting the crimson catch the light. "Maison Ilara's cellar is legendary. This bottle's from 1998. 240 if you can believe it." I believed it. People like him always made sure you did. He gestured toward Marcus. "I told your son we'd celebrate the engagement properly. No shortcuts in this family." Helena chimed in. "Marcus mentioned you live across town, yes? Those older apartments can be unpredictable." "They creak," I said, "like people with memories." She chuckled politely. "Well, when Marcus and Sienna settle into the condo, we'd be happy to help you relocate somewhere easier. Accessibility is important at our age." At our age. She'd trimmed a decade off herself in that phrasing. "That's thoughtful," I said, "though I like stairs. They remind me I'm still climbing." Victor's laugh was the kind that doesn't touch the eyes. "You have spirit. I like that." Spirit. Code for still opinionated, despite your station. The waiter returned with plates that glowed under butter-glossed light. Theirs arrived first, ribeyes pink and proud. Mine last, the humble chicken, arranged like an apology surrounded by garnish. Helena dabbed her napkin. "So, Mara, Marcus tells us you're between endeavors?" I looked at her. Is that what he told you? She tilted her head. Oh, you know how sons are. They like to protect. Protect whom? Her smile stiffened. We only mean we'd hate for you to struggle. Families should help each other. I agree, I said. Victor leaned forward, lowering his tone conspiratorially. Exactly our view. We've been discussing a small monthly arrangement, not charity. Consider it. Gratitude for raising Marcus so well. Something modest, 500 to 700, just to keep things comfortable. The number floated above the table like a fly. Neither of them noticed. Marcus's fork froze mid-air. Dad, Victor waved him off. Practicality, son. Everyone wins. I set my glass down carefully. You're very organized people. Helena clasped her hands. We plan ahead. It's why we've done well. I can tell, I said. Planning reveals what matters most to a person. Her face brightened. Exactly. I wonder, I added, what you planned this dinner to reveal. Helena's smile didn't falter, but her fork did. Reveal? Goodness, Mara, it's just dinner. Is it? I asked. Because the way you speak feels rehearsed, like you've hosted this scene before, with someone who failed the audition. Marcus cleared his throat. Mom, I touched his wrist lightly. Let them finish the show. Helena's laugh returned, practiced and delicate. You're sharp. I like that. We're simply being realistic. Marcus and Sienna will have demanding careers. We don't want anyone dependent. Dependence, I said, is such an interesting word. It can mean love or it can mean leverage. Victor's tone hardened by 1 degree. It's a matter of responsibility, Mrs. Hale. Of course, I leaned in. And who carries it tonight? The silence was thin and tight. Only the violin from the bar filled it, the bow scraping a note that sounded too honest. Sienna tried to rescue the moment. Maybe we should order dessert? Helena exhaled, recovering poise. Wonderful idea. She turned to the waiter. The chocolate souffle, please, 2. Then, after a pause, to me. Do you want one? They're rich. I'm fine, I said. Rich things can be heavy. The waiter left. Helena's tone softened, feigned sympathy. Mara, you've done remarkably well on your own, but independence can be lonely. Let us take one small worry off your plate. One small worry, I repeated. Which one? She blinked. Electricity? Groceries? Dignity? Her composure cracked a fraction. You're misunderstanding our intent. No, I said gently. I'm measuring it. Victor put down his glass. Marcus, maybe you and I should step outside. No, I interrupted. Stay. You might miss the part where I nod politely and accept being priced. Helena's voice went tight. This isn't appropriate. Neither is assigning a market value to family, I said. Marcus whispered, Mom, please. I smiled at him, calm. Don't worry, I'm still the poor, naive mother you asked for. He lowered his eyes. He knew I'd kept my promise, to stay simple, to stay quiet, until quiet turned into a mirror. The soufflés arrived, trembling with sugar. Helena tasted victory, still believing she controlled the evening. So, she said brightly, shall we toast to family and new beginnings? I lifted my water glass. To truth, I said. The clink of crystal sounded like a warning bell. They smiled, unaware they'd already lost something invisible, the illusion that I needed saving. When the bill came, Victor reached for it with ceremonial precision, the same motion he'd make when signing a contract. The leather folder stayed closed. The waiter waited. I watched the ritual begin. Helena leaned toward Marcus. Remember what we discussed, darling. Transfer first thing Monday. Marcus's jaw tightened. Yes, Mother. The word mother sounded foreign in his mouth. I folded my napkin carefully. You're very efficient, Helena. Tell me, do you ever calculate the emotional interest on your loans? She frowned. What? When you lend control, the repayment always costs more. Victor chuckled, but the sound was thin. You enjoy philosophy." "No," I said. "Arithmetic." The waiter stepped forward. "Will that be one check?" Helena nodded. "Of course. We invited her." I glanced toward the brass plaque across the room, Maison Ilara, and the light that trembled across its engraved letters. The line between patience and power thinned to a single breath. That breath carried me into the next act, the part they never rehearsed, the moment money met its mirror. The air in Maison Ilara had texture now, money mixed with perfume and quiet contempt. Victor tapped the billfold once, the way men tap a chess clock when they think the next move is theirs. Helena folded her napkin precisely in half and said, "You see, Mara, the world runs on planning, not emotion. We simply prefer to anticipate problems before they start." I smiled. "And you've decided I'm a potential problem." Helena's laugh was light, brittle. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. We just believe in preparation. Family harmony depends on clear boundaries." "Boundaries?" I echoed. "Like this table?" Victor's gaze sharpened. "Marcus grew up without certain advantages. We're trying to correct that." "By paying for peace?" I asked. He leaned back. "If that's how you want to see it." "I see it," I said softly, "as renting a conscience." Helena's fork paused mid-air. "That's uncalled for." "So is measuring affection in monthly installments." A beat of silence. Even the waiter sensed danger and drifted away. Helena adjusted the pearl at her throat, searching for composure. "You misunderstand generosity." "No," I said. "I understand power. You disguise it with politeness." Sienna's hand fluttered on Marcus's sleeve. "Maybe we should—" "No," Helena snapped, too fast. Then to me, "Marcus is starting his own firm. We've invested heavily. We can't afford distractions or unexpected demands." "Demands like dinner?" I asked. Victor's jaw tightened. "Demands like emotional need. Marcus has responsibilities now." "To you," I said, "or to his wife?" Helena's eyes narrowed. "To success, and we decide what supports it." Marcus spoke, voice low. "Mom, please don't—" I touched his hand. "Sweetheart, I promise to stay quiet. I'm only answering what I'm asked." Helena's smile returned, lacquered over irritation. "You're clever, but clever doesn't pay bills." I tilted my head. "Neither does arrogance. Yet it's expensive." A waiter brought the soufflés. The scent of chocolate and scorched sugar filled the pause. Helena raised her spoon as if nothing had happened. "Shall we toast again?" "To opportunity." "To honesty," I said. Victor muttered, "Here we go." Helena ignored him. "Marcus, you must see why we do this. Your mother's independence is admirable but fragile. At her age, one medical emergency—" I set down my spoon. "You've done your research." "It's called concern." "It's called accounting," I said, "and you've already balanced the ledger." Victor's patience snapped. "Enough. You think we're insulting you, but we're trying to help." "I think," I said evenly, "you're trying to buy distance and call it kindness." Helena's face hardened. "Some of us had to climb, Mara. We weren't handed things." The sentence landed like a slap. "Neither was I," said, "but I built the stairs myself." For the first time, the facade cracked. Helena's voice rose a notch. "You don't know what struggle is." "No," I said. "You don't. Struggle doesn't end when the money arrives. It ends when you stop making others pay for it." Her mouth opened, closed. Victor looked at his watch. Escape by time. Marcus whispered, "Mom, please, let's just go." I smiled at him. "Not yet. They haven't finished teaching us what humility costs." The waiter reappeared with the check. Helena intercepted it quickly. "We'll handle this." Victor reached for his wallet, confidence restored. Our treat. Their small performance of generosity resumed, desperate to re-establish dominance. But the universe has a sense of timing. The waiter returned a minute later, awkward. "I'm sorry, sir. This card seems to have been declined. Probably a travel flag. Victor frowned. Impossible. Try again. The waiter nodded, vanished, re-emerged with the same apology. Helena's cheeks flushed a shade darker than her wine. Run it manually. I did, the waiter said gently. Perhaps another card? She produced a second, handed it over like a lifeline. The waiter bowed and disappeared once more. Marcus sat frozen, torn between embarrassment and disbelief. I reached for my tote calmly. The key inside felt heavy, waiting. The violinist shifted to a softer tune, something almost merciful. The waiter returned. I'm very sorry, Mrs. Park. This one as well. It might be your bank's fraud protection. Happens often. Helena's composure trembled. That's ridiculous. I raised my hand. It's fine. The manager was already walking over, gray suit, precise posture. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Ms. Hale, he said quietly, warmth replacing protocol. Would you like me to process it under the founder's key or note it on the owner's ledger? Helena froze mid-sentence. Marcus turned to me. Mom. What? I smiled gently. It's handled. The manager bowed. As always, thank you for your continued support of our scholarship fund. He lifted the check, nodded at the waiter, and left us staring at the echo of our own manners. No one spoke. The air itself blushed. Helena whispered, You own. Part, I said. Enough. Victor's lips parted, searching for a word that didn't exist. I looked down the table, saw the reflection of chandeliers dancing in their untouched soufflés. True power, I said quietly, doesn't shout. It serves dessert and signs payroll. Then I stood, leaving the tip and the silence behind me. The restaurant felt different once the manager left. No one had moved, yet the temperature had changed. Cooler, quieter, almost reverent. Money has a sound when it shifts hands. Silence has a louder one when it shifts respect. Helena stared at me as if seeing an optical illusion. You own this place? Part, I said. Enough to make sure the staff never get condescended to the way I just was. Victor's mouth opened, then closed. He reached for his glass and missed it by an inch. Sienna's whisper broke the hush. Mara, what do you mean? I looked at her gently. It means your dinner was served by people who work under my tuition fund. Their schooling is on my payroll, their dignity too. Marcus exhaled, voice small. Mom, I didn't know. You weren't supposed to, I said. I wanted to see who loved you, not for the commas in my account. Helena found her tone again, sharp with disbelief. You're... what exactly? A silent investor? Chief Operating Officer, I said quietly. Hale Logistics. We supply half the import chain for this city. My salary last quarter was $38,000 a month. Modest, but it keeps the lights on. The line hit like a clean blade. Even the violinist missed a note. Helena blinked hard, fighting to reclaim the table. You should have said something. We never meant... Exactly, I interrupted. You never meant to. You meant to assume. Victor tried a businessman's grin. Well then, this is awkward. We were just trying to look out for everyone. You were trying to define everyone, I said. Marcus murmured, Mom, please. I turned to him. It's all right. This isn't revenge. It's context. Helena's composure crumbled another inch. Why didn't you tell us? You let us. I let you, I said. Be yourselves. The manager returned with the check presented on black leather, discreetly empty. All settled, Ms. Hale, and the staff asked me to thank you for last quarter's bonus program. Tell them they earned it, I said. He bowed and left. Helena's hand trembled over her napkin. This is humiliating. It doesn't have to be, I replied. It can be educational. Victor's tone went defensive. You planned this. No, I said. You did. You picked the restaurant. You picked the price tags. You picked the tone. I just showed up. Helena whispered, You made us look small. I met her eyes. I didn't make you anything. I just stopped pretending you were large. Sienna spoke softly, finally steady. Mom, Dad, maybe it's time to stop talking. Helena stared at her daughter as if she'd defected to another country. Excuse me? Sienna's voice barely wavered. You said family means helping. Maybe that means listening, too. Victor rose halfway, then sat again. He had no move left. I took a last sip of my water. The bill's paid, the tip's done, the lesson's free. Then to Marcus. Walk me out? He nodded quickly, relief mixing with confusion. Outside, night pressed soft against the glass doors. The city hummed. The real one, not the polished version inside. Marcus caught my arm. Mom, why didn't you tell me about any of this? Because titles change how people behave, I said. Even sons. He flinched. You think I'd treat you differently? Not on purpose, but you'd start apologizing for me before anyone asked you to. He looked down. You're right, I did. I know, I said gently, and you'll stop. The taxi line glowed ahead, yellow lights blinking like patient eyes. Marcus asked, So what happens now? Now? I smiled faintly. Now we let them decide whether they prefer the taste of humility or dessert. Helena and Victor emerged moments later, stiff in their perfection. Helena tried for dignity. Mara, we'd like to apologize for... Don't, I said. Apologies should come after reflection, not exposure. Victor forced a laugh. We'll wire the repayment. I shook my head. Keep your money. Invest it in learning empathy. It yields higher returns. Helena's eyes glistened, fury mixed with embarrassment. You're cruel. No, I said. You're just not used to fairness. She inhaled sharply, found no words, and turned toward their driver. Marcus exhaled again, half smile breaking through. You always did like grand exits. Not grand, I said, just clean. As the cab door closed behind me, I looked once more at the glowing sign above Maison Elara, my mother's name, not sentiment, structure. She built kitchens before anyone built reputations. I whispered under my breath, True power doesn't shout, Mama. It pays the bill. The cab pulled away, leaving behind a restaurant full of people who'd just learned the difference between wealth and worth. The cab had only gone half a block when I realized Marcus wasn't in it. He was still at the curb facing the restaurant, shoulders tight, the way men look when they've just watched their world split into before and after. I told the driver to wait. Inside those tall windows, I could still see movement. Helena's silhouette rigid, Victor's hand slicing the air. Argument by posture. I opened the door again. Give me 5 minutes, I told the driver. When I stepped back inside, the violin had stopped. The room hummed with murmurs. News travels fast in luxury dining. Helena was clutching her purse as if it were armor. Victor was speaking to the manager, too loudly. Run the card again, he demanded. You people make mistakes. The manager's tone was polite steel. Sir, we already spoke with your bank. They confirmed the temporary hold. A few diners turned discreetly to watch. Helena noticed their eyes and flushed. Marcus whispered, Mom, maybe we should just... I touched his arm. Wait. Victor's second card failed too. The manager kept his smile in place, the trained smile of hospitality under fire. If you prefer, sir, we can send the bill tomorrow. That won't be necessary, I said. My voice carried just enough to reach the next table. I took out the small brass token, the founder's key, and set it on the ledger. Use this. The murmur around us stilled again. The manager nodded instantly, understanding. Of course, Miss Hale. He vanished toward the counter. Helena's eyes darted to the key, confusion flickering with recognition. She'd seen one before. In the framed plaque by the entrance, the list of the restaurant's benefactors. Her lips parted. Your name? Yes, I said softly, right beside my mother's. The manager returned moments later. All set. The account will cover the entire evening, including gratuity. Helena tried to stand. That isn't... I cut her off gently. Please, consider it a lesson in liquidity. A thin laugh rippled from somewhere behind us, someone who understood the word and the irony. Helena froze, realizing the room was watching. The scent of embarrassment is heavier than perfume. Victor lowered his head, muttering, "This is ridiculous." "Agreed," I said. "It was ridiculous from the first sip of your $200 wine." Helena's voice shook. "You've humiliated us." "No," I replied evenly. "I've revealed you. There's a difference." I kept my tone calm, measured, surgical, the way you deliver truth that's already proven itself. You spend your life proving you belong in rooms like this. I spend mine building them. You brag about spending money. I create systems that pay salaries. You speak of class. I hire it, train it, promote it, and yet you think humility is weakness. Helena's eyes glistened. "You're cruel." "Cruelty," I said, "is telling a woman she's a burden because she looks ordinary." Victor stepped forward. "We only wanted stability for our daughter." "Then start with emotional stability," I said. "Money can't buy it, but arrogance sells it cheap." I placed my napkin on the table. Dinner's over, the performance too. Marcus pulled out my chair, his first small rebellion of grace all evening. We turned toward the exit together. Behind us, chairs scraped, voices resumed in low, charged whispers. At the doorway, I stopped and looked back one last time. Helena was staring at the key on the table, the gold edges catching candlelight. Her hands were trembling, either from rage or realization. It's hard to tell the difference when both are born of pride. "Keep it," I said, "souvenir of what real ownership looks like." Then I walked out. The night air outside was clean, almost merciful. The cab still waited, headlights soft against the pavement. The driver rolled down his window. "Everything all right, ma'am?" "Better than all right," I said. "A misunderstanding got corrected." He chuckled. That sounded like the kind of dinner where people forget what food tastes like. I smiled. "Exactly that." He glanced in the mirror. "You don't look angry. Most folks after a fight come out shaking." "I'm not angry," I said. "Just finished." "Finished feels good," he said. "Means you told the truth." The line was simple, almost poetic. He didn't know how accurate it was. As the cab moved, city lights slid across the windows, gold, white, silver, like distant constellations. My reflection looked calm, the kind of calm that costs years of silence and one honest confrontation. Marcus exhaled beside me. "They'll never forget this night." "They shouldn't," I said. "Lessons bought with pride are expensive." He gave a small laugh. "You realize half that restaurant's going to Google your name before dessert." "Let them," I said. "It's good for business." We passed a row of neon signs, law offices, pawn shops, bakeries, life beyond the glass, indifferent and ongoing. Marcus finally asked, "Do you regret it?" I thought about it, then shook my head. Regret is for lies. I only told the truth. The cab stopped at a light. In the reflection of the windshield, I saw Helena's face for a moment. Memory or imagination, still frozen at that table. I whispered, "True power doesn't shout." The driver glanced back. "What's that?" "Just thinking aloud," I said. He nodded. "Then think proud, ma'am. You sound like somebody who finally said what needed saying." Maybe I did. The light turned green. We moved forward. The cab's tires hummed over wet asphalt, the sound steady, hypnotic. Marcus sat beside me, staring at nothing, jaw working the way it had when he was a boy trying not to cry after losing a match. We didn't speak for the first few blocks. Silence has weight when it's full of questions. Finally, he said, "Mom, did you plan all of it?" "I planned the dress," I answered. "The rest planned itself." He exhaled through a half laugh. "They'll never recover from tonight." "They will," I said. "People like them always recover. They have mirrors instead of consciences." He turned toward me. Then why expose them? Because you can't cure arrogance with comfort. You have to interrupt it. Streetlights cut across my face as I spoke. When you were little, I said, I used to test people that way. Secretaries, suppliers, investors. Pretend to be smaller, quieter, poorer. The good ones never changed tone. The bad ones always did. It's an efficient filter. Marcus rubbed his temple. I thought you were just shy. I was strategic, I said. Shy people hope the world is kind. Strategic people check before trusting. He smiled faintly. So tonight was a test. A confirmation, I corrected. I already suspected who they were. He looked down at his hands. I told them you were simple, Mom. I practically handed them permission. I turned to him. You handed them a mirror. They chose what to see. He swallowed. I feel ashamed. Don't. You were raised to be polite, not psychic. But I should have defended you sooner. No, I said. If you had, they would have blamed you. Tonight they learned accountability, not resentment. He leaned back, whispering, It still hurts. It's supposed to, I said. That's how growth sounds. The cab passed the river. Glass towers glimmered on the water like fractured constellations. I used to dream of these buildings, Marcus said, owning one someday. Now I look at them and think, who cleans those windows? Exactly, I said. Perspective costs less than ambition, but pays better. He smiled. You're full of quotes tonight. Experience, I said. It rhymes when you survive long enough. The driver cleared his throat. Pardon me for eavesdropping, but I heard that last part. Mind if I say something? Go ahead, I said. He met my eyes in the mirror. I drive rich folks every night. Some tip big, some don't. But the kindest ones? They always say, thank you before money changes hands. That's how I know who's really wealthy. Marcus smiled. So what do you think about people like the ones we just left? The driver shrugged. They spend so much proving they belong that they forget to arrive. I laughed softly. You should write that on a billboard. He grinned. Can't. Afford the rent for one. You might be richer than you think, I said. You understand value. He nodded once, eyes still on the road. And you sound like someone who finally cashed in on dignity. The cab stopped at my apartment building. The driver turned slightly. 35 even. I handed him 250s. Keep it. He hesitated. That's too much. No, I said. You listened. Listening pays poorly these days. He smiled, folded the bills carefully, and tipped his cap. Then I hope people keep talking to you. Me too, I said. Marcus got out first, opened my door, a small gesture, late but sincere. We climbed the stairs together. Inside, the apartment looked smaller after the marble and chandeliers, yet it felt clean, unpolluted. Marcus walked through slowly, touching the old furniture as if seeing it for the first time. You never changed anything, he said. It still works, I answered. He turned. With what you make, you could live anywhere. I already do, I said. I live where peace fits. He nodded, sitting on the couch. I finally get it. Get what? That you weren't hiding money. You were hiding noise. I poured 2 glasses of water, handed him one. He said, I'm proud of you, but I wish you hadn't had to do that tonight. I wish the world rewarded quiet strength, I said. But it only notices noise until silence answers back. He studied the floor. Do you think Sienna's parents will ever forgive you? Forgiveness isn't my currency, I said. Understanding is. He smiled. You talk like a CEO. I talk like a mother who's done apologizing for success. He laughed. Finally, genuinely. Fair enough. The clock on the wall ticked softly. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance and faded. Life moving on, indifferent to one family's small revolution. Marcus said, they'll probably call tomorrow. They'll call when they need something, I said. People like that always do. He stood. What should I say? Tell them I'm busy teaching empathy workshops, I said with a smile. Full enrollment. He grinned, bent to kiss my forehead. Good night, Mom. Good night, son. And Marcus. Don't inherit their fears. He paused at the door. Which ones? The fear of being ordinary, I said. It makes extraordinary people miserable. He nodded and left. I turned off the lamp. The room glowed blue from the city outside. On the table lay the founder's key, small, heavy, silent. It wasn't about ownership, it was about proof that quiet work leaves louder echoes than bragging ever can. I whispered half to the night, half to myself, true power doesn't shout. And for the first time in years, I slept without clenching my hands. Morning light spilled across the blinds before I even opened my eyes, the kind that makes the world look forgiven. The city outside was already moving. Car horns, the smell of coffee drifting from the bakery downstairs. I had slept, really slept, for the first time in weeks. Peace feels unfamiliar when you earn it through confrontation. The phone rang at 8. Marcus. Mom, he said quietly. They called me. I sat up. Helena and Victor? Yes, they want to meet. Today. Where? At their hotel, private lounge. They sounded cornered. Good, I said. Cornered people tell the truth. He hesitated. Do you want to come? No, I said. This time, you speak for yourself. He exhaled. I don't know if I can do it like you do. You don't have to, I said. Just tell the truth before they rewrite it. By noon, the sun had gone sharp. I spent the morning answering work emails, approving a budget revision, pretending normalcy. But part of me stayed with him, picturing that lounge, the marble floors, the polite lies waiting to be spoken. At 2, my phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. They started calm. Then it got ugly. Then another. I'm recording it. You'll want to hear this. When the call finally came, his voice was shaking from adrenaline. I told them everything, Mom. Every insult, every time they made you feel small. I told them I was ashamed. He paused, breath catching. Helena cried. Victor said you manipulated us. And what did you say? That manipulation only works on people pretending not to see. I smiled. Good line. I got it from you, he said. He kept talking, words tumbling out faster. They tried to say the dinner was a misunderstanding, that they only wanted to help me focus on my career. I told them the only thing that distracted me was watching them measure my mother like a budget line. Dad, you would have been proud. Mom, old habit. I'm proud already, I said. They offered money again, a peace gesture. I told them to keep it. Then I told them we need space. No more financial ties, no more opinions disguised as advice. And they looked lost, like they'd never been told no. That's because they buy their yeses, I said. You just gave them something they can't purchase. Silence on the line, then a long breath. I think this is the first time I've ever felt like an adult. That's what boundaries sound like. He laughed weakly. It's loud. It'll quiet down, I promised. By evening, he was at my door again. He looked older by years. Exhaustion and relief always travel together. I poured him coffee and waited. They're leaving tomorrow, he said. Helena hugged me before they left the lounge. No words, just that look she gives when she's already rewriting history. She'll need a new version of it to live with herself, I said. I told her something before I left. What? That you don't need their forgiveness, but they need your example. I looked at him, and for the first time he resembled me. Not in face, but in stillness. The quiet certainty of someone who finally knows where the ground is. Do you think they'll ever change? He asked. People don't change, I said. They get revealed. Maybe once revealed, they choose better masks. He nodded slowly. Sienna wants to come by tomorrow, alone. She should. I warned her you might not want to see her. I'll see her, I said. Not as punishment, as possibility. He leaned back. You always have these phrases ready. They're survival instincts. He smiled. You think they'll ever invite us to dinner again? Of course, I said. People forget lessons that cost them pride. But we won't. He looked at the founder's key, glinting on the table. You kept it. Symbolic, I said. Proof that humility can't be repossessed. Night thickened outside, the city lights blinking awake one by one. Marcus stood, stretching the stiffness from his shoulders. I guess this is what closure looks like. Closure is just the door you close on an old version of yourself, I said. Now we walk through the next one. He smiled. You're sure you're okay? I was okay before dinner, I said. I'm just visible now. He hugged me. A long, grateful hug, the kind that speaks without apology. When he pulled back, he looked lighter. I'll see you tomorrow, Mom. Bring honesty, I said. It's contagious. When the door closed behind him, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The apartment was quiet again, but it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Somewhere across town, Helena and Victor were probably packing, replaying every word, every look, every humiliating second. And maybe, just maybe, one of those seconds would grow into something like self-awareness. It's rare, but not impossible. I poured myself another coffee, stronger this time, and opened the balcony door. The city air was cool, alive with distant sirens and laughter. I thought of my mother again, the one who taught me to read contracts and character in equal measure. True power doesn't shout, she'd say. It signs quietly. I whispered it back into the night. Still true, Mama. Then I went inside, turned off the lights, and let peace take the last word. The knock came just after noon. 3 soft taps followed by hesitation, like someone rehearsing courage on my doorstep. When I opened the door, Sienna stood there. No makeup, no jewelry, no performance, just jeans, a plain white blouse, and eyes that had lost their gloss but found their honesty. Mother-in-law, she said quietly. May I come in? I stepped aside. Of course. She entered slowly like someone walking through a memory she didn't know she'd damaged. Her gaze drifted across the room, my small living space, the worn sofa, the framed photograph of Marcus at graduation. She took it in as if each object was an apology she needed to make. I brought this. She held out a paper bag. Inside was a loaf of bread, still warm. It's from the bakery you like. I didn't know what else to bring. Bread's perfect, I said. It's what people share when they start again. She sat on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped tight. I don't know where to begin. Begin where it hurts, I said. She nodded, took a deep breath. I'm ashamed. I was silent when I should have spoken. I watched my parents treat you like something beneath them, and I did nothing. I said nothing, only listened. Silence can be a mirror. My parents weren't always like this, she continued. They grew up with nothing. A one-room house, no electricity, no clean water. They clawed their way up. Every meal, every bill, every moment was survival. When they finally made money, they promised themselves they'd never be powerless again. But somewhere along the way, power became the only language they understood, and I learned to speak it too. Her voice trembled. You were the first person to make me realize how ugly that language sounds. I poured 2 cups of tea, placed one in front of her. She stared at the steam as if searching for the right words inside it. I wanted you to like me, she said. But I thought liking came from impressing, from showing off, from proving I belonged. My parents taught me that humility was weakness, that kindness makes you vulnerable, and I believed them. I sipped my tea. Belief isn't permanent. It's just what fear looks like when it puts on logic. She met my eyes. You're not angry? I was, I said, for about 5 minutes. Then I realized I wasn't the one who needed to learn something. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You must think I'm just like them." "No," I said softly. "You're at the crossroad they refuse to see." She covered her face with her hands. "I keep replaying that night. The way I smiled while they belittled you. I thought staying silent was diplomacy, but it was cowardice." "You've already paid for it," I said. "Shame is the first installment of growth." She laughed through her tears. "You sound like Marcus. He told me you forgave me before I even asked." "I forgave you the moment you looked down at your plate," I said. "That's when I knew you saw what was wrong." Sienna wiped her face, exhaled shakily. "I told my parents this morning that we're cutting financial ties. They called it betrayal. I called it freedom." "That's a hard word to earn," I said. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I've never lived without their approval." "Then start now," I said. "Approval is conditional. Respect isn't." She leaned forward. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead." "How did you do it? Build everything? Raise Marcus? Stay kind?" I smiled. "Kindness was cheaper than bitterness, and it multiplies faster." Sienna nodded, processing. "I want to learn from you. Not just about success, about dignity, about how to have money without it owning you." "You're already learning," I said. "You showed up." We sat quietly. The city buzzed faintly outside. She looked around again, at the small details she'd once have dismissed as lack. "I used to think simplicity meant failure," she said. "Now it feels like peace." "That's because you stopped confusing noise with meaning," I said. She looked at me with gratitude that didn't need words. "Thank you for not turning me away." "I wasn't saving you," I said. "I was protecting my peace, but peace grows when shared." She smiled faintly. "I want to deserve Marcus." "Then build with him, not with their blueprints," I said. "Houses of love don't need marble floors." Sienna laughed softly. "That sounds like something you'd carve on an office wall." "Maybe someday," I said. Her eyes drifted to the founder's key resting on the table. She reached out carefully, as if it might burn her. "I looked it up," she whispered. "The scholarship program, the staff bonuses. You've helped hundreds of people, and you never told anyone." "Why would I?" I said. "If goodness needs applause, it's advertising." She studied me. "My parents will never understand that." "They don't have to," I said. "They just have to see you live it." Sienna took another breath. "I want to change." "Then start small," I said. "Say thank you more often. Pay attention to how you treat waiters, janitors, drivers. That's where respect begins." She nodded firmly. "I will." We talked for another hour, about work, about Marcus, about the strange relief that comes after truth. The loaf of bread sat between us, untouched, fragrant, symbolic. When she finally stood, her shoulders looked lighter. "I'll go," she said. "I've taken enough of your day." "You've given it back," I said. She hesitated at the door. "One last thing. Marcus said you taught him to keep his promises. I promise I'll never stay silent again." "Good," I said. "Silence is only noble when it protects peace, not pride." She smiled through her tears. "I'll remember that." When she left, the room stayed warm for a long time. I sliced the bread, poured another cup of tea, and thought about cycles breaking quietly. In kitchens, not boardrooms. In hearts, not headlines. Sienna wasn't her parents. She was proof that awareness can still be inherited if someone decides to feel instead of fear. I looked at the founder's key once more, its brass surface catching afternoon light. It had once represented success. Now it represented something rarer, continuity, the ability to hand wisdom forward. I whispered, "Let her learn fast, Mama, let her stay soft." And for the first time, I believed softness might actually survive the world. The apartment was quiet again. Afternoon light slanted across the rug, the kind that softens everything it touches. On the table lay the half loaf of bread Sienna had brought, its crust firm, its scent faint now. I broke off a small piece, tasted it, and smiled. Still warm enough, still real. Peace, I realized, has texture. It isn't loud or cinematic. It's the sound of a kettle cooling, a floorboard settling, the hum of traffic reminding you the world keeps turning whether anyone is watching or not. My phone buzzed once. A message from Marcus. She's on her way home. She said she feels lighter. I typed back, "Good, so do we." Then I put the phone face down. Some conversations deserve endings. Others just fade naturally into calm. I walked to the balcony. The city spread below. Metal, glass, motion. I used to see competition in those high-rises. Now I saw stories stacked on top of each other. People chasing visibility, forgetting that peace hides in the small places they pass every day. I thought of Helena and Victor somewhere across town, maybe boarding a flight, maybe rewriting the dinner story for their friends. I didn't need their version. The truth had already printed itself in memory. A poor, quiet woman signing a bill she technically owned. That was enough permanence for one lifetime. Inside, the clock ticked past 6. I poured wine into a chipped glass, sat by the window, and let the silence stretch. True power doesn't shout. It doesn't need an audience or applause. It simply endures. For years, I mistook endurance for invisibility. I thought blending in kept me safe. But safety is just another form of permission granted by those who fear your strength. Tonight, I no longer wanted permission. I wanted peace. And peace required boundaries. I opened my notebook, the one where I write small lessons for the scholarship girls who work at Maison Alara. At the top of a blank page, I wrote, Lesson number 47. People will measure you by what you look like until you remind them what worth sounds like. Then beneath it, true power is quiet because it doesn't need to prove survival. It is survival. I set down the pen. My mother used to say the same thing in simpler words. When they talk loud, she'd whisper, just keep working. She never saw marble tables or black cards. She saw dignity as currency and kindness as profit. I carried both accounts in her name. The doorbell rang once. Marcus again. He stepped in without waiting, carrying 2 cups of takeout soup. I figured we could eat something normal, he said. Normal sounds rich, I replied. He laughed. Sienna told me what you said about houses of love not needing marble floors. She wrote it down. Good, I said. Maybe she'll build one. He sat opposite me. You know, Mom, I keep thinking about that night. The waiter, the silence, the key. I used to think winning meant being loud. Now I think winning means staying calm while the noise burns itself out. That's maturity, I said. You finally understand compound interest, of character. He smiled. You should give speeches. I just did, I said, to the only audience that matters. We ate quietly. When we finished, he gathered the cups, placed them in the sink. Helena texted, he said, a short one. Just 3 words. We were wrong. That's longer than I expected, I said. Will you answer? Not yet, I said. Some truths need to echo before they get a reply. He nodded, kissed my forehead, and left. I watched him go, a silhouette against hallway light. Taller now, steadier. Maybe the night at Maison Alara hadn't just exposed arrogance. Maybe it had created a spine. I looked again at the founder's key on the table. Its brass gleamed even in dim light. Not a trophy, just a reminder. You can be underestimated and still own the room. Outside, dusk deepened. Street lamps flickered on one by one. Somewhere, a violin played faintly from an open window, off-key but heartfelt. It made me smile. Imperfect music is still music. I lifted my glass toward the city, a quiet toast. To the underestimated, I whispered, may we never need to shout. Then softer. And to the ones learning humility, may they keep their lessons longer than their luxuries. I placed the glass down, leaned back, and let the quiet wrap around me like something earned. If you're still here, Listening to this story, thank you. Maybe you've been on both sides of a dinner table like that. Maybe you've been the one underestimated, or the one who underestimated someone else. Either way, remember this: money buys volume, but respect speaks in tone. Tell me where you're listening from tonight. I read every comment. If this story reminded you of your own quiet strength, tap the heart. Share it with someone who needs to hear that dignity doesn't expire, and if you'd like to hear more stories like this, subscribe. There are 2 more waiting for you on the screen. True power doesn't shout. It simply shows up, pays the bill, and walks away.